Well, no matter which of these situations you're in, the answer to your problems may be right under your nose. And if you stick with me till the end, I think some of you are going to be surprised at some of the things you learn as I discuss the 15 reasons why you should consider joining the military. I help frustrated job seekers successfully navigate the job search and interview process. If you're like a lot of people between the ages of 17 and 35, you may be constantly trying to figure out what to do with your life. You may be in high school nearing graduation. You may be out of high school but working in what seems to be a dead-end job. Or you may be in college wondering what you'll do when you graduate. Maybe you've already graduated college but haven't been able to find the right job and don't have a clear path forward. And if none of those scenarios describe your situation, how about these? You're a misfit who doesn't fit in, or you're socially awkward and don't ever think you'll find a boyfriend or girlfriend. You come from a poor family, or you live in a dangerous or drug-infested area in the inner city or in a small country town. You're tired of living with your parents, or even worse, you're bouncing between places and have no formal home. Well, no matter which of these situations you're in, the answer to your problems may be right under your nose. In this episode, I'll be discussing how joining the military can literally change your life for the better. And if you stick with me till the end, I think some of you are going to be surprised at some of the things you learn as I discuss the 15 reasons why you should consider joining the military. My name is Mark Williamson, and I currently lead talent acquisition for a leading U.S. company. In addition, I'm a United States Naval Academy graduate and former naval officer. My wife is a former enlisted Navy hospital corpsman, and we currently have a daughter who attends the Naval Academy. And of course, we have lots of friends and family in and out of the military. So I've got great firsthand knowledge of the subject at hand. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to mention is that depending on who you talk to, some people view serving in the military as a good thing, and others view it as a bad thing. Some people have moral reasons why they're against military service, while others have an elitist attitude and look down on those who join the military. So if you're in the moral camp, that's your prerogative, and I wish you well. However, those who look at people who serve in the military as less than are simply ignorant and ill-informed. Another thing I want to mention is that don't look at the military as all branches being the same. Life in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, or Coast Guard can be very different depending on the branch you join. So choose the branch that fits your personality, style, or career aspirations the best. But I encourage you to do your research, because a lot of people have incorrect assumptions about what each branch is and about the types of things you'll do. Here are some things you'll sometimes hear about each branch. As it relates to the Army, you'll hear that the Army is the most blue collar of all the branches, with lots of infantrymen and bad locations. The Air Force, you'll hear that they're the newest branch, which is true, and as a result, they have the best amenities. You'll also hear people say that they think the Air Force has the best looking women. The Navy is generally considered to be one of the more technical branches, and generally has the best locations given the general need to be near water. So oftentimes the Navy will have locations in places like Hawaii or San Diego or Virginia or Florida or places overseas. And then the Marine Corps, the generalizations you'll hear about the Marine Corps are that they're the toughest of all the branches. They have the best looking uniforms. Now, generally speaking, these assumptions have some truth to them, but having visited military bases of all four branches and having worked with people from all four branches, some of these assumptions are simply off base. Now, before we jump into the 15 reasons, I also wanted to share some stats with you that you might find interesting that illustrate that the military can be the foundation of tremendous life success. So here we go. 29 former American presidents served in the military, including both George Bush's, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon, John F. Kennedy, and Dwight D. Eisenhower, to name a few. 82 current members of the House of Representatives served in the military. 17 current members of the United States Senate are military veterans, including one of my Naval Academy classmates that I know pretty well. There are currently 18 billionaires who served in the military. Some high-profile former professional athletes who served in the military include former Dallas Cowboys quarterback Roger Staubach, former San Antonio Spurs center David Robinson, former Arizona Cardinals NFL player Pat Tillman, Ted Williams, Yogi Berra, Joe DiMaggio, Willie Mays, and Jackie Robinson, to name a few. Numerous CEOs of Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies have served in the military. The military service academies, which include West Point, the Naval Academy, and the Air Force Academy, are considered by many to be on par with Ivy League colleges and produce some of the nation's best military and civilian leaders. And finally, high-profile universities like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, MIT, Tufts, Berkeley, Duke, Georgetown, Bucknell, and Johns Hopkins all have ROTC programs. So you'll often serve with individuals from top-notch colleges and universities such as these. So let's get into the 15 reasons you should consider joining the military. The first reason you should consider joining the military is to serve your country. No matter what you hear me say after this should be the number one reason you decide to join the military. Do not even consider joining the military if serving your country is not your primary motivation. And serving your country can have dire consequences depending on the state of things in the world and the circumstances you end up in. Some people serve their country behind a desk in the military, but many people may be asked to go into harm's way at some point in time. And this could ultimately result in injury or death and should not be taken lightly. So please don't join the military unless you understand that and are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Now, I don't mean to scare you by mentioning this because most people who join the military end up just fine. However, laying your life on the line is always a possibility. The second reason you should consider joining the military is to develop valuable job skills. Now, as I said in the beginning of this episode, right, you might be coming out of high school without a good plan, or, about to graduate college, or have already graduated college and you've got your degree, but just hadn't figured out the right career or the right job. And, especially for those who are about to come out of high school, right? You know how it is in high school when you get to that final awards day and you get to hear who all is going off to college and all the great things they're about to do, or about all the athletes who are getting scholarships to go play football or basketball or soccer or volleyball at some great school. There is always a large portion of people, however, who don't have some grand plan, who didn't end up in the top of their class, or who hadn't figured out what they're going to do. Now, again, that's not to say that people in the top of the class don't go into the military, because they certainly do. As I just listed off a number of prominent people who served in the military. But there's always a portion of people every year in every high school who don't have a grand plan. And, as I said, the second reason you should consider joining the military is potentially to go develop some valuable skills. But in addition to that, you can feel proud if you make a decision that, hey, I'm going to go enlist in the Navy or enlist in the Air Force or whatever you decide to do. Or if you've got a degree, I'm going to go pursue an opportunity to go be an officer in one of the military branches. You should feel proud about making a decision like that. And, at the end of your high school year, when people go, well, what are you going to do? You don't have to be ashamed when you go, Oh, you know what? I'm enlisting in the Navy. I've got a plan. I'm going to go to Great Lakes, Illinois to boot camp. I'm going to finish boot camp and I'm going to go to A school. And, I've got a plan to go learn to be an electrician, and the Navy's going to train me to do that. And then I'm going to get to go live in a nice exotic place. I'm going to try to get Hawaii or San Diego, somewhere on the West Coast or in the Pacific where I've never been before. And, I just want to go live life and, really develop a skill that's transferable once I leave the military, if I ever decide to leave. So I encourage you to be proud if that's a decision you make, because you can stand up with everybody else. Okay, you're going to the University of Alabama. Great. I'm going off to the Navy and I'm going to go see the world and I'm going to go do some fun stuff. So let's get back on the topic though of developing a valuable job skill. Now, when you join one of the military branches, right, in order to join, you have to take the ASVAB test if you're looking at going in as an enlisted member. And if that's the route you're going, right, based on your score on that test, it will determine what sort of jobs you have the opportunity to go do. So again, you do have to have some skill in order to go get these, some of these more technical jobs. But whatever the job is, right, whatever your personality and style is, whatever you link up to, whatever you match up to based on the test, you have the opportunity to go develop valuable job skills in the branch that you decide to go into. Now, the branch I know most intimately is the Navy. So I'll talk a little bit about the Navy. In the Navy, first of all, the first misconception a lot of people have is that everybody in the Navy is on a ship. That's not the case. There's more people in the Navy not on ships than are on ships. And the Navy's probably 800,000 or 900,000 people at any given time. So that's a lot of people in the Navy. But I would bet you less than, probably only about a third of the people in the Navy ever even touch a ship, because there's so many other things you can do in the Navy that support the things that various naval specialties do, right? Think about it. The Navy has ships, submarines, and then a lot of people don't realize there are a lot of people who fly in the Navy, right? We fly planes on and off of aircraft carriers. We also have shore-based planes in the Navy. There's helicopters in the Navy. So, just as many people fly in the Navy as fly in the Air Force, believe it or not. So those are some of those types of roles that you might see in the Navy, but there's always jobs that support all those things that I just mentioned, right? There's always technical jobs like electricians and mechanics and cryptologists and intelligence professionals and, quartermasters who navigate and communications specialists who do things with computers and electronics and radios, you name it, satellites, right? So there's numerous jobs that the Navy will send you to school to learn how to do that support our various specialties in the Navy. There's nuclear power. Enlisted members can go to nuclear power school, amongst a whole host of other jobs, which I won't go too deep into. But every branch, whether it's the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, or Coast Guard, have their version of those types of jobs. So based on your research and understanding what jobs are available, you can match those jobs up based on your score that you make on the ASVAB examination and go into those jobs, develop that skill, and those skills will often transfer back into the civilian world if you decide to leave the military at some point. So the second reason you should consider joining the military, again, is to develop valuable job skills. The third reason you should consider joining the military is to reinvent yourself. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, again, when I was describing some of the scenarios that you might be in earlier, let's say you fit some of those scenarios, i.e. you were an outcast or a misfit, or you grew up in a poor family, or whatever the case may be. When you join the military and go off to boot camp or go off to officer candidate school or whatever route you go, no one knows you. No one knows your economic situation. No one knows what environment you grew up in. No one knows that you didn't have a girlfriend or boyfriend in high school. No one knows that you were a nerd. No one knows that you were socially awkward. So, in fact, a lot of the people who are joining the military are people who are just like you. Now, there's also plenty of people who were cool people in high school and who joined the military because they had a sense of duty, or it's just something they wanted to do, or whatever it was, or they just had nothing else, in mind and thought this was the best route for them. So it's a mixture of people in the military. But my point is here, you can go join the military and go reinvent yourself, because what happens is you show up to boot camp with these other 100 people or whatever number it is, and you're all searching for something. You're all looking to go do something different, something fun, something interesting, and immerse yourself in a world that you're not used to. So what happens? First of all, they shave all of your heads the same, so everybody looks the same initially. The girls get their hair cut, or if not, nowadays the rules have changed a little bit, so they all have their hair up, in a training environment. So no one's looking their best selves right away. But then you all get to go through the rigor of the training, and you get to boost each other up and help each other out and develop relationships and camaraderie. And the next thing you know, the training environment ends, boot camp ends, and now they go, okay, you guys can go on liberty, which means you get to go have some fun in town. And so all of a sudden you get to put on your civilian clothes. And what happens? The girls put on makeup. They do their hair. They put on nice jeans. The guys, have grown their hair back out a bit, but now they've got a nice high and tight haircut and they're looking sharp. Everybody's got money in their pockets because everybody's been getting a paycheck while they're there, and everybody's going to continue to get a paycheck. And as long as you're willing to open your mouth, communicate and talk to people, show some personality, you'll be surprised at the guy who was the nerd back home, or the guy who was a misfit or outcast. He impresses the girl from Nebraska who showed up to boot camp, who doesn't know him from Adam, but for whatever reason, she thinks his personality is cool or he's quirky. And the next thing you know, and I've seen it time and time again, my wife saw the same thing. Guys and girls are hooking up. Guys and girls are hanging out. Guys and girls are just, doing stuff together. And guys are gravitating towards other guys and going, oh, this is a good friend. This is going to be a good friend of mine, lifelong friend. So you develop friendships, you develop relationships. People don't judge you for your past because they don't know your past. And so to me, this is one of those major reasons that if you're out there searching for purpose in life, searching for a way to get your identity, for a way to gain your independence, right? To not have to depend on the poor environment that you came from and suffer through life with nothing. This is a way to reinvent yourself. And like I said, there's numerous reasons to reinvent yourself: to get out of poverty, to get out of drugs, to get out of crime, to meet your eventual partner or girlfriend, boyfriend, or just to immerse yourself in a world that's different than the one you knew. So the third reason you should consider joining the military, again, is to reinvent yourself. The fourth reason you should consider joining the military, I just sort of hinted on it in the reinvent yourself section, but I'll say it again: dating opportunities. And, you might be going, well, Mark, why are you talking about that so much? Well, because, listen, look around. Life consists of people finding their partner, finding their person, and, getting married eventually. And if not getting married, at least being together, having kids. That's a part of life. But yet there are plenty of people who in high school and college haven't figured that out yet. Right? For whatever reason. And, maybe you're a late bloomer. Maybe you had zits on your face. Maybe you were out of shape, whatever the reason was. But again, as you're thrown into a military environment, the barriers all go away. Now, again, I'll say this again. You can't go into that environment and be a recluse and be someone who shies away in a corner and someone who doesn't hang out and someone who doesn't want to interact with people, because you're going to continue to be that same awkward person that you were before you joined the military. But one of the things the military naturally does for people is it brings out something in you, because in a training environment that everyone has to go through initially, you're not allowed to be silent. You're not allowed to cower in a corner. You're going to be forced to scream, yell, participate, run, exercise, get in shape, partake in team building activities, classroom activities, physical activities, right? So you're going to be forced to open up and be someone who is interacting with the team. So naturally, when it comes time to then move on past the training environment into the social environment, which is a part of life in the military, because, you get liberty, you get weekends off, depending on the scenario you're in, you're eventually going to be around these people that you've never been around before, on a day in, day out basis. And I always say, over the course of 3 to 5 months, all barriers break down. The person who thought you were a little bit awkward in the beginning, once they get to know your personality, hear a few jokes you tell, kind of see how nice you are, how caring you might be, all of a sudden barriers fall and now they're interested in you. And again, if you're willing to interact and converse and show personality and make a person feel good with appropriate compliments, don't sexually harass someone, don't make unwanted advances. I'm just telling you, all this stuff will happen naturally, the positive things that end up leading to dating opportunities and relationships. And so, I've seen, I've got a daughter right now who's 20. So I've seen her friends grow up with her, and I've seen the ones who were the natural socialites and the ones who were the awkward folks who just couldn't quite figure it out. And I've seen some of them go off to the military and literally be married within a year or two. I'm not recommending you go do that, but I'm telling you that happens. I've also seen some who went off to the military and screwed it up and did something stupid the first month and got sent back home and ruined their opportunity to go build their own life. So, again, fourth reason you should consider joining the military: dating opportunities. Take it seriously. The fifth reason you should consider joining the military is to stay fit. Yes, we all know the military forces you to do physical activity. Usually it's in that training environment initially, but even after that's done, the military requires that you take physical fitness tests a couple of times a year, and therefore you're forced to stay in shape, whether you like it or not. I mean, I'll use me as an example. I hated running. I absolutely hated it, but had to do it. It was the route I went, and I knew it was a part of it. I mean, I was good at it. I was fine running. I just wasn't one who, outside of what they forced us to do, would just go out and go on a 5-mile run. That wasn't my style. But I also knew every 6 months I had to take the physical fitness test, where we had to run a 1.5-mile test, and we had to do push-ups and sit-ups, a certain amount in under 2 minutes. And so that meant you could not wait until the last minute to start working out. You had to always, at least, a couple times a week, make sure you got some physical activity in, whether that be going to the gym, whether that be playing basketball or whatever your sport was, or whether it just be running and doing push-ups and sit-ups. You had to do something. So, for those of you who are out there struggling with your weight, a good buddy of mine, when I was going to the Naval Academy, he was going into the Marine Corps, as we were coming out of South Carolina together, and he was a chubby high school kid. And he and I started running together to get ready to go off to our respective paths. And he ended up going Marine Corps. And from the day he stepped in the Marine Corps, he was never chubby again. And he served 24 years in the Marine Corps. He was a drill instructor while he was in there. He did all sorts of stuff. And, he just embraced the physical fitness aspect of what the Marine Corps taught him. So, if you're struggling a little bit with your weight, I mean, you can't be grossly overweight and think the military is going to take you. You've got to get to within a standard. But, the military will still take you if you're somewhat outside of weight standards, as long as you're able to perform those physical fitness tests and are willing to put in the time and work and effort to slim down and get yourself within the right specs. So, fifth reason you should consider joining the military: to stay fit. The sixth reason you should consider joining the military: the GI Bill. So, as a lot of that's the bill that essentially pays for college for you. And a lot of people, the first reason they want to join the military is to get college paid for, which is why I told you my first reason that you should consider joining the military is simply to serve your country. It shouldn't be for college, because you could also lose your life while serving your country and never get to college, right? But you got to understand that's a possibility. But as I said, the majority of people go in the military and they're fine. They don't, have that negative experience. But the GI Bill, let's talk a little bit about it, because it is a major benefit of being in the military. The post 9/11 GI Bill includes payment of tuition and fees, a monthly housing allowance, and a stipend for books and supplies. And this is for students attending public colleges and universities, right? The GI Bill does not necessarily cover expenses at private schools, but however, there are some private schools who will accept the GI Bill. So it's a case-by-case basis. But generally speaking, the GI Bill will cover tuition fees, etc., at public colleges and universities. Now, the national maximum at such schools is around $25,000 per school year. That's right, you heard me right. The GI Bill will pay around $25,000 per school year, and it generally increases a little bit every year. Now, who's eligible for GI Bill? Well, there's some rules that you have to meet, but generally speaking, if you do 36 months in the military, you get full GI Bill benefits. If you serve less than that, there's certain portions of the benefits you get. So make sure you look up the rules on it. But most people who serve in the military have no problem, because everybody serves, usually 3 years or more. Generally, the commitment is at least 4 years. But, if you get kicked out or something like that happens, then, your GI Bills could be in jeopardy. So you'll have to look up the rules of the GI Bill. But generally speaking, serve 36 months, i.e. 3 years, and exit the military, you're eligible for the GI Bill. And by the way, if the GI Bill doesn't cover the full cost of your education, you should see if your school participates in what's called the Yellow Ribbon Program. This is an agreement that schools make with the VA to split school costs not covered by the GI Bill, therefore reducing or eliminating the amount students must pay themselves. So that's the sixth reason you should consider joining the military: the GI Bill. The seventh reason you should consider joining the military is free college through your state's Veteran Benefits Program. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I currently live in the Kansas City area. However, prior to living here in KC, we lived in Texas for 17 years. And Texas, for example, has something called the Hazelwood Act. And the Hazelwood Act essentially says that if you're a veteran who entered the military from Texas and then you eventually come back to live in Texas, you can go to any state school for free. You can go get your undergraduate and you can get your master's for free. Tuition is free. And oh, by the way, if you don't use your benefits, you can actually transfer them to family members. So let's just say if I'd have come out of Texas into the military, and then I served and came back to Texas, but I already got my degree because I went to the Naval Academy. If I wanted to send my daughter to a, University of Texas, which is a state school, the Hazelwood Act would have paid for her tuition to go to the University of Texas. And so there are other states as well who have specific state benefits for veterans as it relates to college. So again, you'd have to research your particular state, but that's the seventh reason you should consider joining the military is free college through your state's veterans benefit program. The eighth reason you should consider joining the military is the brotherhood and sisterhood that you will develop with your fellow military members that you serve with. I can tell you from personal experience that the people you meet in the military will end up being your lifelong friends. I mean, because the reality is most people who leave home, right, they might have one or two friends they keep back home. Everybody else sort of falls to the wayside. But now you're serving with these men and women for anywhere from a year to 4, 5, 6, 8 years at a time together in various locations. And you're going to develop deep friendships and deep relationships. And those are the people that you've been depending on. They've been depending on you. If you were put into harm's way, your livelihood depends on, them having your back and vice versa. And so it's just a natural thing that you develop this brotherhood and sisterhood with these people that you serve with. They'll be the people who are your kids' godparents. They'll be the people who are coming to your retirement ceremonies, and they'll be the people you're going on vacations with as a family. I go on vacations with one of my best friends from the military and his family. We do it every few years. So again, number 8 reason why you should consider joining the military, especially if you don't have a bunch of deep friendships that you kept from school, from high school, is the brotherhood and sisterhood that you'll develop with your fellow military members. The 9th reason you should consider joining the military is your access to the VA loan. Now, depending on where you are in the stage of your life, if you're a high schooler, the VA loan may not mean anything to you right now. Even if you're in college, maybe it doesn't mean anything to you. So let me explain what the VA loan is. Anybody out there who ever decides that you want to buy a house, right? You've probably seen people in your family go through this. Most people in the civilian world who buy a house, you have to save money over a number of years so that you can have money for a down payment. Depending on how your credit looks, some banks might ask you for a 20% down payment. And, think about it, on a $300,000 house, that's $60,000. And even if it's a loan program that says, you only need 10%, not 20, on a $300,000 house, that means you need $30,000. Even if it's a $100,000 house at 10%, you need $10,000, right? So a lot of people are deterred from buying homes, especially early on in their careers, because they don't have the money for a down payment. Well, VA loan is a program through the Veterans Administration and i.e. the government that says if you've served in the military for a certain amount of time, and again, it's similar to GI Bill, you've got to have served a few years and left the military in an honorable standing, you're eligible for a VA loan, which means you can get a loan, a mortgage to buy a house with 0 down payment. Now, it doesn't mean you can't put money down, but you're not required to put money down. And I'll have to look up what the maximum amount of loan is nowadays. But last I checked, I think the VA loan amount had gone up to well over $500,000 is what you could buy a house for with no money down. I'll have to double check. It might even be up into the $600,000 or $700,000 range now. But so the point is, this is not you can only buy a $100,000 house with no money down. No, literally, you can go buy a $500,000 house with no money down using a VA loan. Now, of course, you've got to be able to afford the mortgage payment on a $500,000 house if you go that far. But whatever the amount is you spend on the house, the point is here, that is a very unique loan program that not everyone has access to, and veterans do. So it's a big deal. And oh, by the way, I've used my VA loan 3 times in my life. I've bought 3 houses using my VA loan. So that's the number 9 reason why you should consider joining the military: access to the VA loan. The 10th reason you should consider joining the military is access to VA health care. So what does that mean? Well, let's say you've served your time in the military, whether that be 4 years or 20 years, and you got out. Well, guess what? Nowadays, as everyone knows, you have to have some sort of healthcare coverage in order to have your healthcare visits to the hospital or doctor, benefits that cover some of that cost. Well, as a former military member, you have the ability to go to the VA hospital for totally free. That's right, free. And I've seen on occasion where the VA might charge you something for going, but I think I got a bill one time from the VA for something that I went for, and it was like $3. So again, just call it free. Now, most of us, right, when we come out of the military, right, we get corporate jobs or whatever you're going to do, and you have benefits through your company the way I do. And so generally speaking, you don't necessarily use your VA benefits. But let's say you found yourself out of a job and looking for a new job or something. Well, if you all of a sudden needed to, go to the doctor, or if you got sick, if you didn't have a job and didn't have benefits, some doctors won't see you. And if they do, it's going to cost you hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, depending on what you had to go to the doctor for. Well, as a veteran with VA healthcare benefits, every major city has one or more VA hospitals typically. So all you do is call the VA, tell them you need to make an appointment. They'll get you in. You go in and see that doctor and have whatever you need treated for free. So number 10 reason you should consider joining the military is VA healthcare benefits. The 11th reason you should consider joining the military is it's fun. That's right. I said it's fun. Listen, guys, when I was in the military, it was the best time of my life. It was. Now, everybody's situation is going to be different. So my experience may not be your experience, but I've talked to enough people to know you have fun in the military. Now, that's not to say you might not get called up somewhere or, sent somewhere that's not fun. But generally speaking, there are plenty of times in the military where you have fun. And what do I mean by fun? Well, I'll give you some examples. I lived in Annapolis, Maryland. I lived in Newport, Rhode Island. I lived in Honolulu, Hawaii. I lived in San Diego, California. I lived in Columbia, South Carolina. All during my time in the military. Okay? In addition, I visited 10 countries and 23 international cities during my time in the military. I visited the Kingdom of Tonga. I visited American Samoa. I visited Pattaya Beach, Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand, Surabaya, Indonesia, Satahip, Malaysia, Bali, Indonesia, Cairns, Australia, Hobart, Australia, Perth, Australia, British Columbia, Vancouver, Singapore. I visited all those places. Now, I'm not going to say what type of fun I had in all those places, but you can get the point. We went to clubs. We went to parties. We were on boats. We were at resorts. We were playing golf. We were playing basketball. We were doing community service. We were taking tours. We were eating in the finest restaurants, staying in five-star hotels. I mean, me and other members of my ship or whatever scenario I was in at the time, we all did fun stuff. In addition to doing those types of fun stuff, I did fun stuff on my ship. I got to be the boat officer, which meant we put a small boat in the water, like a small mini yacht off of our big ship. And I got to take a crew and go in advance of the ship and go check out shore. Um, we had Marines on our ship. We launched Marines in their AAVs, and there's whole evolutions that go into that sort of thing. We did fire drills. We did emergency response drills. We did all sorts of fun and interesting stuff. I've been down in a submarine. I've flown in an airplane where I got stick time in a training environment. I went and trained with the Marines for 2 weeks and lived in the woods. And, I've done all of that stuff. Now, I'm not saying all of that is so pleasurable, but it's all different, unique. Every day is, every day is something new. So absolutely. The 11th reason you should consider joining the military is it's fun. Whatever your branch is, trust me when I tell you, there is a version of fun that happens in every branch, whether that be on duty or off duty. So if you're tired of your boring town that you live in that has no sports teams, that has no art scene, no museums, no nothing, join the military and you will instantly be immersed in environments where you have fun built in. The 12th reason you should consider joining the military is military discounts. That's right, I said it. Military discounts. If you are a military member or a veteran, and for example, I'm no longer in the military, but on my driver's license, I have the veteran stamp in the state where I live, which is Kansas. When you go get your driver's license, they say, bring your DD-214, which is the document that proves you're in the military. They will stamp on your driver's license that you're a veteran. And so whether you're active duty or a veteran, there are numerous stores, restaurants, car dealers, you name it, places that give some sort of military discount. That discount can generally range between a 5% discount up to probably somewhere around a 25% discount. In some cases, up to a 50% discount. Some places you may be familiar with that give military discounts: Home Depot, 10%. Lowe's, 10%. Advanced Auto Parts gives a discount. LL Bean gives military discount. AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Chick-fil-A, most places give a military discount. Shields, the sporting goods and outdoor store, which if you've ever heard of them, they give discounts. Jersey Mike's Sub Shop. Now, I just recently bought a new set of golf clubs, and I bought a set of golf clubs from a company called PXG, which stands for Parsons Extreme Golf, which was started by Bob Parsons, who is the founder and CEO of GoDaddy. And when I mentioned earlier that there were 18 billionaires who are former military members, well, Bob Parsons is one of those billionaires. And he owns a golf shop, a golf store called PXG. Bob Parsons gives military veterans around 50% off all of their clubs, apparel, etc. And they are a high-end golf company. And so I just bought a set of PXG golf clubs that should have cost somewhere around $3,500 for less than $2,000. So military discounts are real. You should not be ashamed to use them. The stores who have put these into place are looking to honor military members and give you some sort of reward for the sacrifices that you put down, the places you've been, putting yourself in harm's way. And it's a discount that me and my wife and my family use all the time whenever it's available. So, number 12 reason you should consider joining the military, military discounts. The number 13 reason that you should consider joining the military is USAA membership. Now, by now, most of you have probably seen the USAA commercials. It used to be a time where USAA did not run commercials, but in case you haven't seen those, what is or who is USAA? USAA is a company based out of San Antonio, Texas, which is an insurance company and financial services company, essentially, right? But generally speaking, most people use USAA for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, personal property insurance, some financial investment vehicles like mutual funds and that sort of thing. And they've got a whole host of services, but it's a big deal because they generally speaking are one of the lesser expensive insurance companies out there, especially for auto insurance. And more importantly than that, they're one of the most dependable companies. If something happens to your car, if something happens to your personal property, you don't have to worry about going back and forth with USAA haggling over whether they're going to pay you. As a military veteran who is a member of USAA, they step up immediately and take care of the situation if you are a member and you have your insurance through USAA. So don't take that membership lightly. As I said, the 13th reason that you should consider joining the military is a USAA membership. The 14th reason you should consider joining the military is, and you're going to laugh at this one, but getting out of traffic tickets. You're probably saying, Mark, are you serious? Getting out of traffic? Absolutely, getting out of traffic tickets. So what do I mean by that? Well, a couple things. When you're in the military, because it's happened to me a couple times, and I know numerous people who have told me it's happened to them. When you're in the military, if you get stopped for speeding or, going 8 over or 10 over or something, generally speaking, when the officer comes up to the car, if you give him your license and your military ID together to let him know you're a military member, many times the officer will let you off with a warning. They'll go, hey, slow it down. You're speeding a little bit there, but I'm just going to give you a warning. Please slow it down. And even if they give you a ticket, they're going to treat you with pretty good respect. And part of the reason for this is many police officers are former military members themselves. So they're helping out a fellow brethren or sister, right? And even if they're not a veteran, right, they consider you one of their brothers in arms. So if you show them your military ID along with your license, they will often not give you that ticket. Now, the other reason that you often get out of a ticket, or the other way you can often get out of a ticket if you're a veteran, is if you have something on your car that indicates you're a veteran. So for example, all of our cars, we have Navy veteran plates on our cars. Through the state of Kansas, you can get a veteran plate, and it just has a little seal on the left side of the plate, of the license plate, that has U.S. veteran. And then beneath the plate, at the bottom, it says Navy on ours, right? So I'll give you an example. One day we were driving through Lee's Summit, Missouri, right after we moved here. And we're in my wife's black Lexus SUV. And her car is, a black Lexus LX 570 with black wheels, a legal black tint. So it's not illegal, but it's got a dark tint, but it's within the limits. But it's an intimidating car. It looks sort of Darth Vader-ish, right? So we're driving through Lee's Summit, and then, we don't know where we are. We're just driving through some neighborhoods and along the lake. And All of a sudden I notice a cop pull out and he gets right behind me. And I think I don't think I was speeding, but I might've been, 37 and a 35, which technically might be speeding. Right. So he potentially could have given me a ticket. He came out behind me and I noticed he started following me and he started to get closer. And then I think when he got closer, he saw my license plate that said Navy veteran. And so he followed us for another minute or two and then veered off. But you could tell in the beginning, it looked like he was following us to say, what is this suspicious car that I've never seen over here? It's dark, vadered out, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I was doing 2 or 3 miles over the speed limit when he pulled out, but he backed off and turned off. And I can't verify to you that the reason he backed off and turned off was because he saw my veteran plates, but I can tell you, generally speaking, cops feel more relaxed when they see a veteran. They know, generally speaking, you're not going to be a criminal, that you've served your country. You're generally going to be an upstanding citizen. So I'm not saying use this to take advantage and get out of tickets and rub that in someone's face. But I'm saying a natural effect of being a veteran, if you display the fact that you're a veteran or show your military ID if you're an active duty member, is that cops will often give you some grace. So 14th reason you should consider joining the military, getting out of traffic tickets. And the 15th reason you should consider joining the military is civilian job opportunities once you leave the military. Now, as I said in the beginning of this particular podcast episode, I'm the head of talent acquisition for a leading U.S. company. And in addition to my current role, I've worked for several companies over the years. And one of the roles that I had was actually leading military recruiting for a company out of Texas, which meant my job was to go out and find military veterans or individuals who were about to transition out of the military back into the civilian world. My job was to go find people who fit what we were looking for and hire them into positions. And so for those of you who don't know, many, many, many companies really, really respect military veterans, the work ethic that we have, the order and discipline that we were used to, the accountability and responsibility that we had to hold and be held to while we were in the military. And so many companies, as a result, will have military veteran recruiting programs where they look to bring in veterans into their organizations because veterans add value to companies. Okay. In addition, there are a number of recruiting firms who specialize in placing military veterans in companies in various roles. Some of the names you'll hear out there are companies like the Lucas Group, Bradley Morris, Recruit Military, Cameron Brooks, amongst others. But they are all recruiting and staffing agencies who focus on and specialize in preparing military members who are looking to get out of the military to go out and get civilian jobs. And then they have relationships with companies, and they will often have hiring conferences that match up military members or veterans with those companies. And that's just scratching the surface of the opportunities out there for military veterans when it comes to civilian opportunities. But just know, as a veteran who developed those job skills we talked about in the beginning, or as an officer in the military who developed those leadership and management skills, companies want you. There are opportunities everywhere for you to go out and make an impact in both individual contributor and management and leadership roles at companies across the country. So, as I was coming out of the military, I'll give you some examples. I went to one of those hiring conferences that I just mentioned that some of those staffing firms that I mentioned put on. I interviewed with and got offers from the following companies, just so you know what sort of opportunities are out there. I got offers from 4 Johnson and Johnson medical device companies. Johnson and Johnson has like, I don't know, over 200 companies under its umbrella, but some of their medical device companies are really heavy hitters in the med device space. And I was able to get offers from companies like Ethicon Endosurgery, Ethicon Inc., a company called LifeScan, and amongst others from Johnson and Johnson. I also got an offer from Exxon Mobil. I got an offer from Dell Computer. I got an offer from HEB Grocery Store. Um, I can't even remember the others, but I ended up getting something like 14 offers at that conference that I went to. And they were all with reputable companies and management track roles. And so don't underestimate the power that your military service has when it comes to making you attractive for jobs and opportunities out in the civilian world. Joining the military will not only make life better during the time that you're serving, but it will truly set you up for future success if you decide to transition back into civilian life at some point. And whether you serve 4 years or 24 years, based on my experience, it will be time well spent. I help frustrated job seekers successfully navigate the job search and interview process.